Hello, welcome. Gonna get started here. Couple of setups. A little bit of background music. A little bit. A little bit. There we go. Something like that. All right. Well, today is gonna be a programming kind of day. So we'll see how we're gonna start this. Still slightly waking up. Well, been woken up. Been waked. I've been waked. Just been a little bit drowsy today. It's a drowsy day. It's like a weird day today. Like low energy type of day. Trying to grab my cup of coffee here. Pro tip for coffee. Don't use sugar. Use honey. Yeah. Did you know? Well, a couple of things about that. You got to keep the honey not in the boiling condition of the coffee. So either you gotta wait for it to cool down, or you gotta put some milk in it. Because honey has great health properties, but under extreme heat, they kind of distinguish. So keep that in mind. Oh, yep. Yep. What is up with... Why is my camera wonky? Why is it doing that? Smooth my silhouette a little bit, man. My chair keeps coming on and in and out of focus. I had to put some old jeans on the top of the chair and sew it together. You can see that. Because cat loves to be on top of the chair and destroy it with its nails. So my solution was give him a scratching post of my old jeans on the chair. Why not? Can't fight it. Support it. Enhance it. Something. Let's see. Let me check some vitals over here. Some stream vitals. Boom. Testing to see how the sound is. One, two, three. It's pretty good. It's not killing the background. It is a little loud though. I can lower it a little bit. It's supposed to be background noise. Background sounds. All right. Well, let me get my energy in. What's up? What's going on? How you doing? Today we're gonna go into some SQL, all kinds of SQL, really, because the end result is SQL is not specific. It's not to one particular language. I mean, it's its own scripting mechanism, right? It's not even a language per se as far as like programming goes. It's more of a backend to holding information. You want to store user information, you want to store passwords, you want to store data like products. While there's a lot of different ways to reference the interactions of a SQL database, the main concept is you have like your main language that you run your system on, your program, your application, your web app, whatever. It can be in PHP, it can be in Python, it can be in C, C++, Java, whatever you decide to run your main application on. And SQL is another attachment in the back where it acts as a mediator of data. Your main application will, of course, input user logins or data entries for like a product system, a POS, point of sales, or a CRM, customer reporting management system. I can't remember what the acronyms were. And you input new user, new product, new whatever. Your main application, like in Java or C or PHP or Python, it will essentially take that data and then pass it. First, it'll do some checks to make sure maybe the email is formatted correctly. You have an @ symbol, you got a dot something. If your phone number is being plugged in, a phone number is being plugged in, it has like the amount of digits for a phone number, any requirements you might have, like a worldwide code, you know, like the +1 for US and all the other plus numbers for different countries. So it depends on how you format the front end, the input box, because there's kind of like 3 layers to it, which we should kind of discuss here on a quick whiteboard. So if I was to go over here, set up a little here, and let me see where I should put these, because I need to organize where my stream stuff goes. No. I guess that would be the best place. There, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay, so taking a look here, let's make a little move over to the whiteboard. It's not being completely shared yet. There it is. We can take a couple of steps. I don't even know. Should I do it this? I want to do it on my actual like tablet. Hold on. We're going tablet on this. I want to draw. I want to use hands. I don't want to use a mouse to draw. That's not intuitive for me enough. So let me get in here real quick and adjust where I'm doing what. There. And I'll just swap it over. Oh, but then I gotta plug this sucker in. Charo. All right. So here's kind of our layout, right? And actually SQL as a kind of secondary backend, another framework where any language can communicate with it. It serves as a great point of contact as a middleman between everything, right? So maybe you have an application that works in different ways, with different languages, different interfaces. So what if we hate how it doesn't do that? So what if we have our little SQL right here in the middle? What is SQL? Well, think of it like a super fancy Excel sheet. Right, you've got yourself a table of data, information. Normally, you want to consider that your first identifying factors here is a built-in ID value. And by default, SQL begins with 1, 2, 3, 4, and it just keeps going as you add more data into the system. So this is your typical SQL setup. The rest is up to you on how to configure. The ID is mandatory because we got to manage the data that goes in that actually gets itself organized based on how many items are imported into or are put into your database. But if we're dealing with, let's say, like a login, your table would look something like the user name, UN, the password, and potentially login time. Something of this matter, right? And each one of those will contain ID of the specific user with the password correlated. Now, the big issue with these sort of storing user information is to make sure that that information is encrypted. You don't want to just throw in the password right there for like anyone to access later on. So you use hash and different types of encoding methods to take the string of the password, convert it into a mess of jumbled letters and numbers that can be decrypted later. So for the sake of privacy and security, you never store private information in your database. What you do is you encrypt it beforehand, and then you pass that encryption to check a encrypted to encrypted value comparison, which we'll get into detail there. But as a case for this format, when we're dealing with SQL, we got to consider, well, how does it interact into our ecosystem? So for the most part, SQL, again, is its own server. Just like a web server holds files that will be images and videos and HTML and PHP and all these kind of pieces that create your web page, SQL is its own secondary server. So you would actually have to take your main connection, your main website, and connect to that server so you can access it. So if we think of a website, we can't really run a website on the basis of just HTML. That's the kind of a very bland, static form of a page. It never changes. It always looks the same. And if you go in there, you have to modify everything, including text, posts, and whatever you decide to update on a regular basis. You have to go in the HTML and do all that modification manually through the HTML. So the way we bypass that is we need a more programmatic language that can breach this HTML static environment and the SQL database, make a connection, and then work with both to modify the web page. What we call that in the web world is PHP. So a PHP language is a server-side language. It's like, if I can compare it to anything, it's like if Python is a scripting language, had a baby with like C or C++ or like Java as a formatting form, right? They have very close formattings with if loops, while loops, and all these kind of typical syntaxes. And when we do have a connection here, normally you'll have a database PHP file that'll attempt a connection to your SQL. You give it your credentials. You have to actually pass credentials in. And of course, all of these PHP files are on the server, so they're not read directly by someone connecting. All the person connecting sees is the in-between HTML output. They never get to witness what's happening on the server side. So PHP will create a HTML form, output, template, website, whatever. And it's almost like PHP is that little in-between sort of coder, like a developer in the middle that basically does the details for you and automatically adjusts the page depending on how you want to see it and what happens in that process. So when we're dealing with this sort of interaction, the stopping point for the user is the page. It's the HTML page. They never connect back or see anything happening on the PHP. So naturally, as long as your server is secure, it doesn't have exploits, all those kind of like injection-based ways to access confidential code, right? Or even configuration files, or specifically something we would call a DB file. If there's no way for them to connect to that specific file, this works on a different level of hierarchy, making sure that certain folders are protected and never accessible from the outside, and all kinds of security measures that we'll take in between. But as long as the user has this little playground up here, of the user and the HTML interaction, PHP runs with complete obfuscation. There's nothing that really can be leaked unless the developer is bad and decides to pass something like a password to the HTML in the background. So coding techniques and coding common sense takes a big part. You never pass anything that's private or security sensitive to the HTML side of things. You only parse it in the PHP case. Private data should basically stay within the PHP server. And of course, PHP is its own server, right? So again, we have a server that is PHP, we have a server that is SQL, and they communicate based on that connection of the database PHP connection configuration. And what does that do? So how does this SQL play a part in this ecosystem in its own language terms? Because nowadays I see a lot of like, I have a long friend slash student that I'm mentoring slash assisting. Especially recently, he used to work at a kind of financial corporate level on one of the mobile carriers. And he was laid off, so now we're looking for a new job and going through all of these jobs on the market. A lot of financial business analysts, even FP&A, data analysts. Well, data analysts are specific to like quantitative fields like computer science and statistics. But like looking at just your typical financial sector of the business world, a lot of finance and like financial jobs are now including SQL as a part of that arsenal. So applications now are like putting, hey, you know, intermediate level usage of SQL, understanding how to access a database, how to parse information from that database, and all of these business, finance, banking, asset control, controller jobs, they require that new employee to actually know SQL. So this is why I'm actually making this video, because it's not just for programmers anymore. It's expanding. This happened like within the last year, even call it this year. When we were searching for jobs with my friend for his employment, last year, December, February, we didn't see too many specific jobs relating to all these databases and SQL. And literally within the last 2 months, they started popping up. All the same jobs that he would look for, FP&A, uh, financial preparation and analysis, business analyst, especially business analyst. For some reason, business analyst, as you would think, like I'm analyzing the business with potentially mathematical, statistical analysis, forecasting, has now leveled up to even seeing administrative, like computer administration in the requirements of a business analyst. Not to mention just the SQL default that exists within these jobs for finances, right? So this is why it's very important in our current day and age to really understand SQL and go forth with expanding our tool set, even if you're not a programmer, even if you're just going into business and banking and all of these jobs that require parsing data. That's it. Anything that parses data nowadays is going to be based on this factor of, can you access this SQL server and then actually incorporate the data from it and then use your Excel or whatever, Workday or Microsoft IB, um, Tableau, all of these other systems to analyze the data and create dashboards and all that kind of stuff. But it all comes down to, hey, can you access this SQL server? So that's why the focus is specifically on this format here. So on the web side, now this is the web. This is the World Wide Web case scenario. You're building a web page and you got a login and you got products and you're getting people to basically manage their systems. You're going to be doing it with PHP as the mediator of privacy on the server side and presenting to the user the page that you're essentially building from PHP, and giving them the information that is or should be accessible to them. No private info. You're going to take all details that are private out of the HTML output, right? So that's the key here. The database PHP, db.php, call it database connection, gives us access to the SQL server. And this is more of like an automated connection, because in the case of what we're going to see in the code aspect of things, we're essentially accessing the database using that system directly with the code. And the code will then have pre-configured functions to do certain things like add a new product, delete a product, update an existing product, which now starts to go towards the functionality of what actually SQL is capable of doing. And the abbreviation here is CRUD. Well, what is that? For C, we have create data. For R, we have read data. For U, maybe you guessed it, it's update data. And finally, for D, it's delete data, which, give or take, not a lot of people like to delete data. We can see this with a lot of privacy issues, including like Discord and all of these hacks that basically, well, give exploiters and hackers access to our private data. I don't think delete is used as much as it should be. In fact, most of the time we don't delete. We don't really delete. Preferences prefer to archive. They just prefer to archive the data. They don't like to delete it. They'll pass it on to a different server, deleted, but it still exists, and the server is just old past history information, where they just store deleted data. So really, the delete function of SQL is probably underused, in my opinion, and should really start being used more often, because under the cases of privacy exploitation of people's information, we've seen how much hacking has of. And unfortunately, corporations don't like to delete data because, well, what if we need to use it for the future? Sort of excuse. So they shun down and developers for deleting it. And I've had to create my own version of these sort of CRUD systems for smaller employers. And they didn't want to delete anything either. They would actually not even move it to a whole different database to delete. They would just mark it as archived and keep it in the same data set, the same table, which is even worse. You just put a little 1 next to archive, and that's it. Like, some of the inefficiency, that's what they prefer to do. I told them that's not a good idea, and yada, yada, yada. But as a developer, who am I to say what the business owner wants, right? They have their own mindset on their preferences, and they don't want the data to be deleted. They just want a little 1 next to archive. And oh yeah, it's deleted now, guys. Sad. It's a little bit detrimental to the factor of privacy. But hey, all right, there's the website of things. What else does this do, right? We've only seen one sort of connection. We haven't talked about the potential return, right? So from this DB connection, we can make CRUD requests. Like, give me a user, give me login info, check some details of a product, and then we get a CRUD output or response. For whatever request we made, did we create something? Yeah, you successfully created it. Good job, SQL says. Reading information. Oh, you read the details? Here's the information from the database. Pass it on to PHP. You want to update some stuff? Let's take the CRUD request, get the details of whatever you want to update, maybe date of birth, maybe product price, whatever. And then CRUD responds, hey, everything's good, we updated. And that's the general workflow between PHP and SQL. But the cool thing here is that it's not just a case for PHP. It's not even just a case for web-based applications. SQL, again, is more of a universal middleman between data points. So we can even expand this, and now maybe we have an application. Maybe we have a cloud like Adobe. We have a web portal to log in and create account through the web side of things, the PHP side of things. We create a new account, but then our local Adobe application, Photoshop, Premiere, whatever, it also goes on this database and then checks to see the user. So they're interconnected between. So this SQL database is actually now another entry point for a C++ DB connect, db.c, right? You put the information in there, or CPP, or whatever you're doing here. Oh, or even Java, or db.java, or db.python. And that expands the functionality of what this database does now. Not only can you just create and work as a web interface and access your data and your user account, now whatever applications built on any other language, there's no limitations. These are just the most common cases, right? You can also think of it as C#. Right? So whatever application you're building, whatever language you're using to build your application, this is the factor of how all of these become synchronized on one database server. So in the end, it's almost like SQL is the heart of the system. SQL, a server managing data, becomes the heartbeat of the whole system. From creating users, managing users, updating users of products, to throwing it over and giving access to Photoshop, let's say. That would be a case for like a C# based application or C++ based application. Or for Java, Minecraft, right? That's how you log in to Minecraft. Minecraft.java, or, well, the C# version, Bedrock. Minecraft.java will see if your account exists on that specific server that it's programmed to check. And for Python, it's more like an analysis factor. So we will do something like a data analyze .py. It's not going to be a specific whole application in Python, which you can technically do. It will be more inefficient to have Python really be the standalone application for some of these cases, but it is possible to create a full-fledged application in Python. In the end, it is kind of like compiling a specific way and using libraries that are akin to like C and C++. So it's almost like you're using C and C++ with Python, but you're obfuscating with scripting instead of actually programming it in the C++ environment. So the case here is that all of these Photoshops that will be under the C++, C# space will have now access to that SQL database. Minecraft login will have access to that SQL database. Your custom Python script will now have access to the database, so it can do whatever parsing and data analysis that you need it to do. When are the users on? What's the peak time of day? What's the most sold products? All that kind of stuff. And this brings us to the finance jobs, because again, I stress this as not a specific video for programmers. This is really going to focus on the SQL part of things. That's why I've expanded it in so many directions, because in the end, we as finance individuals, we don't really care about all those extra languages around SQL. We're diving into the SQL server itself. So when they say, hey, can you read, write, and do you know SQL and how to parse databases, they're actually ignoring all of these other entry points. They're saying, hey, can you access the database directly and do whatever you need to do to get the data from that database? which many times you'll also see finance jobs not only lean towards straight up SQL scripting and understanding, but they'll also say, hey, do you know Python? Because in the end, Python scripts can be created very quickly to do some analysis or to pull the data down and convert it into Excel or do all kinds of little automations that make the workflow much simpler for anyone in business analysis or FP&A or any sort of like world finance modern day uh, system. So the focus really is, in this case, gonna be more on the finance jobs because again, the reason I'm making this video is because I've seen so much on the individuals that or the applications that are seeking for individuals that know Python or SQL, but the application title is business analyst or financial analyst or FP&A forecasting or senior FPA analyst. Like all of these weird, like, no, it's not weird, it's actually expected, but all of these, what normally would seem like weird places to put programming in, now has become the standard for future jobs. And this, again, is happening in the last 2 or 3 months. Maybe I'm a little early to the analysis part, to the video space, and this video won't hit until maybe a year from now when everyone realizes, oh, now my business degree requires me to go into Python or SQL for that matter to get my master's or to get my bachelor's degree. Now you must learn SQL and Python in order to analyze that data. When it used to be like be super proficient in Excel, which probably still going to be a requirement. Don't count your eggs yet. But now on top of Excel, you're going to need SQL to access the data, and then Python to basically automate that access and convert it to Excel so then you can do your normal workflow with analyzing and presenting data output and charts and um, data dashboards and all these kind of KPI stuff. So that's really the focus. We're down here. So we're not talking about developing. We're actually going to expand on this space. Okay. So in the case of a finance job that we're dealing with the SQL, we are still going to be thinking of SQL as the main focus. We're going to see examples from different types of access points. We're probably going to focus more on the Python side because, again, Python is going to be a huge factor in these finance jobs. It's a pretty straightforward language to learn, just on its basic usage. You don't have to go super ham into like learning user interfaces and creating all of these intricate systems and backends and front ends and whatever. You just create an automated script that does something, connects to a database, pulls information, and then spreads it out in the way you want to see it. You can save that to CSV, to an Excel, to whatever you want, what you need. But in the end, this is kind of the point, is to know where SQL lies and how that ecosystem works, because that's the first step to realize as a finance analyst, what are you diving into? You're diving into the heart of every single system, of every single, hold on, that's not a good highlight. Let me make that a little thicker here. Of every single connection point. Yeah, give me that thick highlighter. Nice. That's satisfying. Oh, I love writing. Too bad we do it much more on the digital side than the paper side nowadays. So the heart is where you will go into take information that has been um, collaborated and condensed and passed through from all of these external systems. The web PHP side, the Photoshop application side, the Minecraft Java side, or just the typical data Python data analysis script. Ooh, I'm a little bit, I'm still waking up a bit. Hold on. I'm gonna take a breather. So that's the overall beginning space. We're gonna be really focusing in on the Python space, if not maybe 20-30%, because you can technically like download SQL Workbench and then use that SQL Workbench to access the data, create diagrams that will show you how you can basically organize your database. That's kind of the first step, is planning out your database if you're creating it, right? So we're not going to focus on the C and CRUD too much. We're going to really more focus on the read data, because as an analyst, as someone that will use Python to gather data and use that to fabricate or create some sort of forecast from that data, you're going to use your read the most. In fact, you don't want to update it. You have you probably won't be even given the right to do such a thing. You're not going to be given the right to update the database. That also has its own security factors, right? You would need a user login in order to get to the database, and they're probably going to restrict you from actually like updating or even deleting, let alone creating new data, right? You're only going to be restricted to the read, because as any finance analyst goes, you're just taking data and figuring out some sort of pattern in it. Whether sales are going up, sales are going down, whether you're actually like having improvements, what there is to improve on, if the improvements that have been put actually work. All of those are just going to be based on the read aspect of that data set. So all you're really going to be doing is reading. But we're going to go through a decent amount of stuff, because in the end, I have some code that I will be using to kind of guide us in two case scenarios. I have one that is a server, a PHP server. We're going to really focus on the SQL calls, the functions that make the call, the actual scripting commands. But also I have a Python kind of stock analysis that does basically take info from an online source like Yahoo and then saves it in a local database. Two different databases too, because the cases you've got its own server, um, you've got a single file based SQL database rather than a whole server managing it for you. Mm, Postgres, MySQL, SQL. You just got MariaDB, SQL. There's so many different databases and so many different concepts, but in the end, SQL as a foundation stays the same. So no matter what access point, what the background database type, or the interactions that were used to set up the database, your access is going to be still based on these SQL commands we're about to go through. So that was the idea of where SQL lies, what it's doing in the overall scheme of things, and then how it pertains to finance jobs of the future. And again, I feel like I'm super early to the party. In fact, if this AI bubble pops, I might be super early, because we wouldn't see any of these extra outcomes continue to fruition until we do have a systematic improvement in the AI database system that becomes a bit more popular for users and developers to actually access that data set and database and all that kind of stuff in between. I want a certain thing here. Let me do a change. I got cut off up here, but I feel like, how do I change? Do I crop something? Because if I'm back here, I think I just want to make this larger. Hold on, hold on. I'm doing some stream bits over here, modifications. Make stretch me a little bit. Oh, but I'm still cut ahead. I don't want my head cut off like that. So maybe I gotta move myself down like that. Yeah, okay. Something like that. Stretching myself a little bit. Do the same thing here. That looks weird. I'm a stretchy. Yeah. All right, that's fine enough. All right, I'm stretchy. I like the little, I can protrude through my barrier. This thing here. I love the effects. I love the effects. All of this is just scripting and JavaScript and creating some fun things. The background, the border that you see hovering around me. I have other borders too, but a little bit too extreme. I like this one because it's super chill and still a little rippy. Oh, I'm gonna jam out a little bit. Hold on. I'm getting distracted. I'm gonna organize some stuff. I'm gonna get into the code in a little bit here. Feel free to leave any questions in chat for anything SQL related in this moment, since I'm kind of taking a quick music breather. This is your chance to ask. Hmm. Yo, holding the office hours. Open questions. Math, programming, SQL, Python. You got a question? I got an answer. Throw it at me. Currently setting up some stuff though. I just did a little bit on the SQL setup here a moment ago. Here's what it looks like. On where SQL actually works within the branches of the whole ecosystem. So gander at this. If you have any questions, do let me know. But I'm kind of on and off right now because I'm doing a little bit of setup here. But I'm always willing to be of help. So do give me a question if you like. Anything. Anything academic. Right? But welcome in. How you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing, sir? Or ma'am? What are you doing? Don't want to assume, right? mm, Floor is open. Give me a question. I got an answer. Where'd it go? I just had it open. Where'd it go? What? Found it? Where'd it go? Yo, where'd it? Oh, oh, that's not where I was. I guess that's where I'm going. What? Something happened. All right, anyway. Chat commands, counters. Got to set up my bots a little bit here. I do have counters. What do you mean I don't have counters? Is it my Twitch? Oh, it might be my Twitch. No, what the heck? I was literally just there. Hello? What just happened? Yeah, what? That's not even the right header. Okay. Doesn't seem right. That's not right at all. All right, well, I wanted to set up some stuff, but I will continue. Man, you give people the ability to ask a question and they have no questions. Like, you guys do realize the development process is to be curious, right? Karshmi, Chandani, you ask what you're doing and then you leave. And either it's the attention span. I think it's the attention span. Some of y'all don't got the attention span for questions or to wait or to even get a reply. You just go. Remember, streams are like 30 seconds. Oh, well, 15, 20, 30 seconds and a difference here. So they kind of get lagged, right? All right. So anyway, it doesn't matter. We go back now to the coding aspect of things. Welcome to my workplaces, workspaces, workbenches, whatever you want to call them. So here's some factors that we're going to go into when it comes to our database system. So I've got two different databases set up. One is specifically for an online system. Let me just check something real quick before I do go into that. Because one of them is a live database, but I don't want to throw in any live information from the system I've created. Okay. Config, where's the config? I'm just gonna close these off. I don't need those. And then if I go here, okay, config, authentication. It's taking a quick gander here if everything is generic. Yes, okay, we're in a generic aspect of things. Okay, cool. So let's start off with the PHP front end, right? When we're looking at, and this is the local version of my database that local version of the PHP for a friend slash client of mine that basically wanted a laundromat POS, an ability to enter customers, manage pricings and services and all these kind of things for like a laundromat system. We won't really need to take a look at the front end because in the end, we're really working on the SQL aspect of things. So generally speaking, you can tell it's local because there's no password. And my TP user is root because you can only access it through my local computer here. But I do have some setups in the general sense on PHP. So let's take this apart. What are you looking at right now? This is the PHP factor for that database file we were looking at earlier. Where am I at? Why did it not change? Okay, here it is. So that database PHP that you saw on the previous screen is this in essence. It's a little bit more than just this, but this is the configuration space to how to connect to that database. So as a finance analyst that's seeking to connect to a database, you'll need four pieces. A a link, a URL to the location. It can be an IP address with a port. It can be an actual URL that's accessible, but most of the time, these databases are on the back and they don't want to be front end. So you're looking for an IP address with a port to access, which given that you're working at a company and you're actually accessing a database on their behalf, they're going to give you that info, right? They're going to give you the actual access point. Then you're looking for a database name. We're going to take a look at what this looks like on the front end, literally just database on its own. So you'll need the database name you're trying to access. Then you need a user. It's customizable, but for the local case scenario of me building it on my computer, it's root. It's default root. You might be given as a finance individual, engineer, analyst. You again might be given only read access. So you have a special user for reading. And you might be sharing it with other users. You might be potentially working on it on a different case scenario, but you're going to have a special username that you will log in with. They'll probably track what you're doing. So, of course, keep it safe, keep it non-obtrusive, and do your job. But on the sense of the finance analyst, we're essentially looking at that access point being the user that will go into the access path. Now, again, for the most part, you're going to have a type of workbench that you're going to use to access this data, right? You're going to have a workbench that goes and gives you each piece of this. I think I might have this actually. Workbench, no? SQL. Might have to reinstall it. Workbench? No, I guess I didn't. Maybe I reset it or something. So you have this. And here, let me just actually pick it up here. Everyone's got different access points, access parameters, but you would use something like this MySQL workbench. Okay, you would download it, install it, and then you have access to it. And I'll probably do it right now because I'll probably be giving that as a example here. You might have another case to access that database, which might be a user interface provided to you by the company, some PHP access flow, right? We're going to do that as well. We're going to access that same database that's being hosted with this data through a PHP access point. And of course, a password that's customized to the user that you're trying to access as. The rest of these is more like an actual PHP factor, right? This is just more of the cookie management and PHP stuff you don't have to worry about. But notice how, at least in the very case scenario, SQL is defined within the PHP programming structure. The next case is taking a outward look back into how the database works, which is the authentication space, where we actually access that database system from this PHP file. So this database.php would directly correlate to this db.php here. You can spread the files around, and as a developer, you like to be as intricate as possible. But this PHP, db.php, would cater to the connection of the database itself. That's it. It's a file, and if we access that file, this is what it does. You don't need to know this. As a finance person, you don't need to access it through the programmatic factor of it. But in the end, there's your host access point. There's your whatever URL that you're going to be using, or IP address / port, the DB username. And these are just inputs that are being expected by the MySQL server to log into that server. You've got some extra factors here, error mode, and all these kind of pieces, what kind of data to associate, fetch and bring back. In this case, it's an associative array. Programming stuff. No need to worry about that. But that's the point one of contact. Connect to a database, access it, and then provide that data from the database, which we'll see actually right now. I think I don't have it running though. Hold on. I got to get that set up. Hold on. And then provide that access through an interface. So I'm going to have to start my PHP server and my Apache on my exam control panel. If you're a developer, this is your way to basically create on your computer, create PHP, SQL, even have like file transferring protocols within your network. You can create your own interconnected networking infrastructure with this. It's absolutely amazing to have. It's a great little tool for PHP developers. But I'm just going to access this because what I need to do is access the database from a browser. This is the PHP access point. Again, we are also going to work with our MySQL workbench. So let me get that set up and installed. And in the meantime, since I thought I had it, but I apparently don't have it, Boom, boom, boom. Next, next, next. Install. Yes, keep going. So we're gonna access it from two ways. The actual PHP front end, where this is why I had to activate Apache. Apache is a PHP interpreter, and MySQL is a database server. So these are the two servers running, which still maintains the aspect of how our system works, right? We're right here. The PHP server on the left and the SQL server on the right. Both of those need to be running and accessible and interacting with each other. That PHP is going to be the website. Yeah, I showed you some PHP for the main website, but even the interface to access the database has something called phpMyAdmin, fully created in PHP just to go into the database and do some management. A lot of web hosting services will give you a phpMyAdmin to go and access the data within it. So you don't necessarily have to download this workbench, this SQL workbench that I'm setting up over here and still working on it. You can use the integrated systems that is a web application called phpMyAdmin. And this is the two server interaction that we see directly in our XAMPP and the little XAMPP control panel. Apache, which is a PHP server, and MySQL, which is the actual SQL database being run in the background. So right now, if I do localhost, which will connect me to Apache, and it'll be like, oh, okay, cool. I'm in this weird dashboard entry point page that doesn't do much. The menu doesn't seem to work. Nice. But if I expand it, there's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into my phpMyAdmin, drop in, click on it, bam. Here's my database. There's a bunch of different databases that I wanted to play around with, that I'm doing here and there. Even the actual phpMyAdmin has a database in itself that you can access directly from itself. It's a weird inception sort of thing with programming, where what we're seeing, databases, SQL, and all this kind of settings and yada yada, is all actually being maintained right here in all of these tables. So pretty cool, but nothing to need to go into. What we're interested in is that database that we saw in the entry point for the config. Right here, which is the laundromat database. That's where we're accessing. So I click on that, and bam. So now we have clients, orders, order items, services, and this is your access point to start analyzing the data. You may want to pull from services, pull from ordered items, pull from orders or clients, and see how much and how often people come in, go out, all this kind of stuff that would be useful for the developer, for the analyst, not the developer. An analyst, again, just does read instructions. They're just reading information from the database. They're not necessarily going to be modifying, adding, doing anything else, really. Now, if I wanted to access the same database from here, I'm going to go to see dataset, connect to database. This should be it. That's it. Like, it kind of has the defaults already set. Root username. This is also the same as a localhost connection. Stored connection. I don't have one. I literally just installed it. I'll just click OK. And that's it. I mean, technically, because this is local, I didn't have to do any configurations. We actually have everything set up to connect, I think. Did it crash? I think it crashed. Hey, Leopard. How you doing, bub? Did it crash? That's annoying. Okay. Manage connections. Let me do this more manually. New connection. That's test connection. Incompatible server version. Oh, protocol detected. Established, but some MySQL. Okay, continue anyway. That's fine. Okay. So why did you crash then? Second time is the charm? Nope. No. Love it. Love to see. This is why I don't like I just like to create my own code. I love to see things break when I'm trying to access it. Maybe localhost. How about localhost? Because I do have I guess maybe an older version of this server. But this still makes no sense because you should be able to connect to it with no problem. All right, well, let me see. I think I'll be able to connect to it. Let me see. I can potentially access it through the MySQL access point. Or at least the execution program. Wait, hold on. CD to MySQL, I think. There CD bin there LDB my.ini MySQL.exe. There it is. Access denied for user using password no. Okay. So then root at localhost. Hold on. I gotta figure out how to use this again. Help. I don't really connect to it on the manual side of things, but this is how you would find out the process here. Socket name SSL raw reconnects. Pager password none. So P. I need to find the attributes for URL or connection, local IN file, HTML, buff, password, pipe port, prompt name, reconnect, socket name. Where's the examples on this? I don't like I like the manual for Linux better because they actually give examples in the process here. T-table, SSL capture. Well, here's the current setup, I suppose, on my local. Max allowed packets, user no default value. See for connect. Access denied. See, it's using this as a connection factor, but that's not it. This should be root. So you gotta adjust that. I need to have root access. Host name, connect to host. Okay, that's fine. That's the one that's already there. H, P. So H for host, P for password, and U for user? Am I assuming correctly? SSL socket raw, da da da. How about that? Let me try that. What if I do user U root H for local host P blank. Okay, well. Okay, all right. So I guess I assumed correctly on that one. That worked out fine. I guess the password didn't really do anything, but okay, now we're actually connected to the database. That's cool. So we got ourselves access through the actual terminal, which actually works better than the friggin' interface that's supposed to connect to the same thing. Why don't you connect, my man? Standard local socket pipe. Maybe I need to change the standard TCP IP. Local socket pipe? No. Localhost? Uh, no, it's the standard TCP IP. That's why I never really used the SQL my SQL workbench. It's like not even useful at this point. So anyway, I've connected it to multiple ways, right? I've connected it through the Apache, Python, PHP access point. Now I have this, and I can do, what was it? H. Let's do some help here. Clear connect. Send command to MariaDB server. Display, print, rebuild, quit, change MySQL prompt. Where is the set? Let's do, what was it? Go select all. No, it's not right. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, hold on. From all. Can I do that? No. Hold on. Select all from the laundromat one. Let me see. Hold on. I can also grab all the info here. Delimiter connect to reconnect to the server. Clear the current input. Rent current command. Display this help. Send command to Mario. Maria. Mario DB. Mario DB. That's great. Use another database. Status. Okay. No, status is general status. Connection details. Yeah. Okay. 10.4.32. So what is this trying to use? So if I connect, why isn't it connecting? MySQL is developed and tested on oh, I have a database that's higher than the the MySQL workbench. When does last time they updated this stupid piece of crap? That's why I don't even use it. That's ridiculous. All right, so I have an actual database that's a version higher than the actual workbench that can access. Didn't think that was gonna happen. They haven't updated that. Yeah, anyway, that's why I don't use applications to access it. I'll create my own scripts if I have to, because I can't depend on other people's content systems to actually be effective and upkept. But there's a way to look at all of the information from the server, source, execute, script file, rehash, rebuild, completion, clip, prompt, print. There's a way to access the data. At least show me the tables. Ugh. This is where I'm just gonna go to Google. MySQL command prompts, display tables or servers, or whatever. Ultimate guide. This is what, oh, I can use the AI, I guess, but hey, whatever. Oh, right. This is, so show. Okay, select. Okay. How about, no, show databases. Hold on. How do I do the actual database? Because there was a way that I can see, use Sequelize, show tables like pattern, show tables like that. P database connect user P. Oh, I guessed it right, even though it wasn't in the help file. That's annoying. Not even display tables. Prompt display databases. Go all the way to the root. Oh, Scaml? Okay. Really? There we go. Okay, so there's that same output we got from our PHP MyAdmin, right? So dev stream deck here, information schema, and all the general content in that database being held. And then you can select. So you can do show, and I'll do this because I can. And always do a semicolon. You have an error. Oh yeah, show all from. Okay. No, I'm not. Obviously, I don't use the access from the terminal very often. Databases like performance schema, MySQL using show databases. Database show tables. Oh right, use this. It has to default to the database change then tables. There we go. So there's the users, clients, and data. So obviously accessing a database from the MySQL or the SQL, what is it? I guess it is MySQL, right? Yeah, the MySQL executable, probably not the most efficient way to do it, but generally speaking, you can still access the database. So as a finance person, so far, a couple of commands that you just Google, find, and apply. You don't have to be a complete developer to actually access and figure out how to pull data from a database. It takes some time, but in the end, personally, I use it more on the programmatic side of things. When I use it in Python, I use it in the PHP side. And I'll probably use it within my PHP my admin side, just to pull information from these and get some details. Maybe in the case of adding more data sets, right? Now, you do have pretty cool interactivity here on the PHP my admin. This is for newbies that begin. If you're beginning with SQL and you're not sure how and what the commands do, follow this set of steps, right? So here's a case. Maybe I want to do a new database. I have so many test databases, but here's another one. I'm gonna create a new one with the button above, create. Now, keep an eye. Wait, hold on. Okay, so I have 2 tests. No tables found. Oh, wait, maybe I already have them. All right, test stream. No, it's putting it all in the test. Oh, interesting. I didn't know I did that. But, normally it gives me a set of SQL commands for that move that I just did. Okay, so we create a new database. Now, I want to create a table. So I'm going to create users, columns. We probably want 4. Okay. Now, the case is we haven't created anything yet. So you'd want to set up a couple of basics here. And being able to know those basics, you'll see that it always starts with ID. And you want ID to be an integer and to increment AI over here, auto increment. Make sure you do have that as a primary and it auto increments so it keeps on increasing when you input more data. Then you can do something like uname for username, pw for password, and what email for the email, right? You want to change these to varchar for username, probably text for password, and text for email. Maybe even text for username, doesn't matter. At least not in this case. For varchar, you got to give it a length. For text, it's pretty infinite. So there probably will be an issue with that selection. But in the end, what I'm really focusing on is after I do the command, there it is. Oh, I should have just went down here. This will tell you what happened in the creation of this particular case, right? So if I grab this and analyze it in my code, this is where it becomes a bit more entertaining, where you can actually do a interface interaction with your database. Go to the console on the bottom. I forgot to pull that up actually. And then see the command that actually activated the thing that you did in the user interface, how that pertains to the command that actually ran and created the user's database. So in this case, I might want to also try that again here. That didn't actually do it though. I don't like that that didn't give me a console command. Okay, well, great. I think you'd have to do some other factors there. But okay, so now we have our users. And also keep it open, keep the console open. Me going into that database shows you the command that goes into there. Select asterisk from users. So right now you're actually being fed the command actions you're doing with a click. This is how you literally explore your own database, grab a test database online, and then go around, play around, click on stuff, and look at what's happening on the commands in the console. But make sure you realize there is a console there. So then maybe we want to go into our users, open that up, and add. And there's also the top here. This was what I was looking for, actually. And then we want to insert. We're not going to do anything for ID. It's auto increment, so it should essentially just keep going. But for user, I'm going to put test user, password, pass 123, and then email sum@email.web. So you got an input for each one of these. None of them have been defined as being null by default, so you do normally have to input information. Now, again, as a finance person, because again, we're not really going into development of databases. If we go back to where we started from in the beginning of our session, we're really more concerned with the finance aspect of things. We're taking a look at how to access that database. The overall scheme of things, we have the PHP, and in this case, PHP-myAdmin, as kind of like a side tool to access the database from the side, to give you the information. Not just a web server PHP that you would create as a website, right? As a developer, you'd create a website based on .php. There's also that PHP-myAdmin that kind of circumvents the actual web interface, right? The web interface that you would give your user to access. You don't want your user to have access to your PHP-myAdmin because, well, it's bad. It's very bad. So the PHP-myAdmin acts as a tool for the side that will access that MySQL database. So we see that now the command for read access that we want to focus on is the select command. We're not going to be doing anything else other than selecting parts of our data. Again, going back to the beginning, where we were walking in the process, we have the CRUD, combined set of data, combined set of system, for all SQL-based servers. CRUD stands for, again, create, read, update, and delete. But in the end, if you're going to be accessing this in the financial sector, trying to do data analytics on the data of a official company server, you're not going to be given every single one of these. PHP-myAdmin has access to all of these. You're going to be given something particular to just read. And one of those commands is the select. Now, the intricacies, the more statistical application, the Venn diagram of selecting a user from some state with a greater than cost or purchase price of 1,000, that becomes a bit more in the advanced sense of using SQL. That's really where you're going into an application, you want to apply for a business analyst job, and you actually will need to know how to really scrape that data effectively, quickly, and fine-tune the parameters of what data you're looking for based on the task you're trying to go for. So that data analysis job is just going to be read. We're not going to be creating anything. But again, in the aspect of understanding how our server works, this is what we're going to be using to kind of understand SQL. It's kind of a use and learn as you go. So we create test user, give them a pass 1, 2, 3, and some at email.web, whatever, make it up, and then press go. Here's the insert or the create part of our commands. So to read, we have the main command, select. To create, we have the insert. Now to update, I believe it's literally just update. So if I go back into my structure or my browse and I say, all right, I'm going to edit test user and give them a test user 2 and then save. Update. So update is actually pretty straightforward. It's just update, right? Nothing arbitrary there in relation to the command and the action. Reading is select. That's a weird combination. You know, select data. I guess I just like the acronym CRUD. Like, oh, CRUD. These sound like a bunch of boomers that created the MySQL. But then again, think about the length of time MySQL has existed, right? SQL has been on the internet for long time since we started to have web pages that are interactive and save data logins and all this kind of stuff. You can trace it back to 1990s and before. So definitely boomers been working on this system, and they really like that CRUD. Really love that CRUD acronym system, and they really went for it. But create is actually the insert command. That's what you got to really focus on here. The commands in question that we will actually use. And again, we don't really do delete because corporations don't want to delete data. They want to archive it and keep it on the backside burner so they can use it for the future for some analysis that they feel. It's almost like hoarding. People don't like to throw away stuff because what if I need that old toaster one day because the new one broke, or some hoarding mentality of human beings. So we prefer to archive, but in the end, of course, delete will be the delete. So there's delete activated, and then there's the delete from. Now, all of these are precedented if you've seen the pattern so far. From is a very big key for setting a specific location that we're seeking to go for. So you're going to have with select, insert, update, delete. Insert is particular. You have to have the next word into the location. So the table. And then you have a kind of value combination pair. Let's kind of go over here real quick. So insert into table, and then you have these parentheses that organize the data sets. You would start with your column names, right? ID, uname, PW. These are all just the column names of that particular table and email. And then you close it off because this is kind of the set of data you want to manage or modify. And then you would use values, another keyword to use here, values. And now the actual values, that'll basically be like a distributive property, right? So since we had ID first, you would kind of leave that off technically. You would say null because you don't want to add any ID, not in the auto incremented system. If you saw earlier, we activated the ID to be a auto incremented system because every time you enter a new user, a new product, you want that ID to increase automatically. And it's just a counting system. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, up to the millions. You can kind of customize that as well from a beginning point, but that's for a little bit later down the road. So null for ID, but then we have uname, and then we'd have the actual name here on the second input of our parenthesized space as test user. So everything we basically do from left to right is going to be paired up by the parentheses on the left to the values, or the parenthesis table column names on the left to the values we're inputting. Now, password, I did show just pass123, right? Well, that's the wrong thing to do because you're not actually storing a password in this format. You're not going to go in to your actual application or your PHPMyAdmin and add a password. What you would normally do is you would take a PHP script or a PHP input factor. You take that script to input text in some fashion, whether it's from a HTML form or whatever that's inputting it. Then you would hash it with encryption. And then you would store it in here. So you would have some weird like $856 _AB. That's would be like the actual password. You would have it encrypted every time you actually input it. So it's not a very good practice for me to just go in there and insert users into the system. You need a sustainable sort of activator or access point through your PHP application so that you can actually make sure your customers, your usernames, all of your data is not accessible if something bad happens. Your database gets injected and now someone's rolling around and like a pig in mud going through your database. And then finally the email, but we don't have to go into that. The read has its own huge space to really talk about. So that's going to be for a whole different session on using SQL in an advanced manner. But it does start with select something. So something would be like a column that you're looking for, right? So you want to select a column from something. In our case, with the space here, I can do select users or select uname. I think it was uname from users. There we go. Oh, I guess. I didn't really have anything in there, did I? I kind of deleted everything from it. So maybe I can go into another database that actually exists. So let me go to use the laundromat. Did I use? I'm in the laundromat right now. Okay, so how about select everything from an asterisk is a wildcard for everything from users. There we go. I didn't have actually uname. I was mixing my different databases. So here's what the actual encrypted password would look like, right? This is an actual test user being used to access and make sure everything's functioning correctly. This is the hash for it. These are some sample users that don't actually work because they're not properly hashed. But you have all your database info, last log or created at, the role, active, etc., etc. You can go into select all from orders. And there's what that looks like, right? So the current orders, the client ID, there's a whole aspect of structure that as a SQL researcher, analyst, business analyst, financial analyst, whatever it is that you are, you will need to understand how IDs are connected between different tables. Because you've got your typical ID here for the orders. That's one. But this is the auto incremented ID space. So this is just the automated MySQL server increasing by one every time a new order goes in. Then you have the connection. Who was the client that ordered from ID 4? Right? That's client ID 7. So then you can superimpose different connections with specific, what we would call Venn diagram actions to not only take information from the services, or in this case, what do we take? From orders, but then connect the orders to select all, or even in this case, not all. Now I can do select 7 from clients. Okay, well, no, hold on. That's not right. That's horrible, actually. Select all. I just still want to see all. In this case, 7. It's looking for the column name 7. That it's been a long time since I manually accessed the database. Select all from clients where ID equals 7. I think that was it. Okay, there we go. So then you would superimpose 7 into the next selection aspect. Then you will be able to pull that specific Petra Novosel, the phone number, individual, family, discount member, yada, 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 right? So those are the cases where now you're connecting details. These are all fake, just sample data inputs. And what you're doing here is you would connect them together into a single script. Because right now I had to kind of do 2 commands to access this ID 7. So you would actually take that idea now and further expand it into where this and this, you have the and connection. So if you remember in discrete mathematics or in statistical analysis, you have ors and ands. You have the ability to combine them into a single script where it'll parse, take client ID, and then automatically then go into the client and find every single item from that client that was being basically the client is actually doing or buying. And that's how we connect then these client ID keys, user ID keys as well. Those are different aspects. Order types, that's something else. It's its own little qualifying data space. Payment methods, total amounts, discounts, all that's specific to the current order type. But that's basically where the financial analyst will be focused in. No need to go over the other details because in the end, this is kind of a beginner video. It's not so much to go into the advanced nature of how to do those pieces. I'd have to prepare a whole set for that, a whole session in that aspect because it's not too easy. It's logically exhausting. You'd have to be pretty well diverse in discrete mathematics when it comes to the logical statement creation, the ability to create ands and if-thens and ors, and there's a lot of that involved. So that's why a lot of business analyst jobs, at least from the aspect of what I've seen, when I'm helping my clients basically go into the whole job search, when I'm helping them with the job search. And from the last couple of months, I've seen business analysts go from simple scripts and not even scripts, just Excel. Like business analysts went from like, oh, take Excel files and make some really complex formulas, VLOOKUP and functions and nested functions and stuff like this. And then in the last 2 months, I started seeing these business analyst applications include SQL and then include Python and then include all of these sort of factors. But now, not even that. This is just a general financial analyst space. For whatever reason, business analysts specifically, I see it as oh, you have to have business finance in your bachelor's degree. Okay, that makes sense. But then after that, or even as a last entry point, they're wanting computer science people. They're wanting statistical analysis people. They're wanting technicians and technical analysis. Like they want more computer-centric experience than the business of or the business bachelor's degrees in the first place. So that was a very interesting find, and that's why I'm creating this video now and potentially going to expand on the more complexities of what a business analyst will do within the environment of like this whole new modern day shift of what one would be a business bachelor's in business now turning further away from business and going directly into the technical world of, hey, can you actually use these languages to pull information from the database itself? So this is a good place to stop because it gets complex from this point on, but it should kind of give you an idea of where the overall SQL database actually involves itself, where it begins, where it ends, and where the entry point is for an individual that's just in finance to access that data and then be able to grab it, analyze it on the side. Well, analyzing it on the side will be a whole bunch of different Python scripts or Excel, depending on tool of choice. But in the end, this is just the access aspect of how do we get to that database? How do I access that database? What's my tools that I can use to get there? And we saw right now that we have a terminal entry point for a command prompt. We have the PHP entry point from a Apache server. I think I'm able to also modify the server. Let me see. Actually, I'm not able to modify the server here, but I know that I have modified the backend configuration to include a whole remote server into the same PHP interface. And that basically lets me go either to my local by clicking the local or changing to my remote by clicking the remote. So that was a pretty cool little find by just modifying some configuration files in the Apache. Was it Apache? Yeah, it was in the Apache PHP my admin space. But that's it. That's it for here. I just wanted to make sure I gotta get started on this subject because in the world of adulting and individuals going to college and university and studying hard for any particular business, you're gonna get left behind if you haven't already started going into programming. Not even just crazy programming, not about creating applications, but actually like making sure if you're in business, you understand how this new database centered environment that holds everyone's info and continuously keeps getting bigger is going to play a big part into your skill sets. Especially now with AI being able to help out and work with individuals and give you some key thoughts and ideas on how to set stuff up. This video might be all you need in order to now start talking to one of your AI chatbots and then ask it specific questions about what's the commands for this, how do I access that, potentially not have to do with anything like, oh, my database is behind a firewall. How do I pass through that? Now you got to work with ports. So this is a good kind of intro for individuals that are getting into the business environment, understanding what SQL actually is, and then getting a good brief intro to how to access from different methods, how some of the commanding systems work, and expanding from there. If you do like and actually subscribe and comment any questions about SQL in the comments after the video is posted, after the live is done, I'll be able to go back into the comments that you post and actually answer the questions directly for that particular, um, well, whatever questions you may have about SQL, right? You're pertaining to the video title. We're here for scripting today in SQL. So if you have any questions particularly to that, I'll be happy to answer. If I see a lot of demand for this type of stuff, I'll be happy to make a part 2 to continue on this rabbit hole of how finance, business, bachelors, individuals are going to now need to really dive deep into the logic of SQL. You know, how to select specific sets of overlapping tables and data points and keys to get specific data out for analysis. So that's it. Thanks for joining. Appreciate your attendance. Normally, I do have a Q&A for these. I always look in the chat to see if anyone has any questions based on SQL and the subject of today. I see Leopard is in here spamming like normal. Hi, Leopard. How are you? I'm very excited. We're going to be doing our thing soon. But I wanted to make a serious video on this. So that's why I wasn't paying attention to you, Leopard, because you're always goofing around. But I do appreciate you coming in and being you, doing your thing. And again, my students range from all kinds of age ranges, from uh, mathematics from 8 to 18 plus college students to professionals in their field when they're dealing with programming and using APIs with Python, PHP, C++, Java. Basically, it's this channel serves as a Swiss Army knife to the future. So for individuals that do like to learn or are in the moment expanding on their skill sets, trying to get to a next level of, well, the modern day advancements of technology and data analysis, then do definitely subscribe, interact with the videos. Your interaction with my videos, with my chats, with my comments, with the likes, with the notifications, with all those details show me where you guys are interested in me expanding. So if I see a lot of likes, a lot of questions on a specific video type set live, then I know I can focus on that direction safely, knowing that you guys will be there interested in that content. So that's it for today, at least for this case scenario. Appreciate you guys coming in. Thanks for the join. I'll see you soon, Leopard, and we'll do our Minecraft on and other stuff that we're doing in the collabs. So thanks for joining. Don't forget again, like, subscribe, join in on the Super Scholars. Check out all of my offerings that I have for any one-to-one individual-based tutoring in mathematics. Again, everything from basic math all the way to college math. I've taught over 5,000 plus students, ranges 8 years old to 50. I can teach you. I've been told that I can teach monkeys mathematics. So I'm pretty confident I can teach about 95% of students that come to me. So if you think that you're that 5%er unicorn, I highly doubt you are. But I do enjoy having conversations, having people interact, and you basically, show interest in the videos that I post. So it helps me focus in on those subjects. So if you're just coming in, make sure you watch the video as a whole because it's a great aspect of entering the SQL world of finance and business. So otherwise, thanks.